So the Seven Hermetic Laws. These 7 laws basically comprise existence as it is. Everything that there is. Law number 1, that one we will leave for last. Law number 2, the Law of Correspondence, is described in the phrase as above so below, and as below so above. That means that there is a correspondence. It's basically explained in science as fractality. Everything is a fragment of something. So for example, if we see a tree, the roots, you see the roots that are like little branches, and it expands. This is a fractality. Every part of the tree is a fragment of a whole order in the tree. We are fragments also of something bigger, and everything is a fragment of something. This is the law of correspondence, right? So everything that reflects here in this realm, it's corresponded in other dimension. Everything that I feel in my interior, psychologically speaking, the correspondence law, is that whatever I feel internally is projected or manifested externally. This is the correspondence, right? Then the third law is the law of vibration. Everything is vibration. This has been demonstrated by science. Light is vibration, sound is vibration, matter is vibration, music is vibration, everything is vibration. We're vibrating all the time. And our emotions are vibrational states of our being. Polarity. Everything has its opposite. So if we go to the foundation of matter, atoms have polarity, electrons, protons. We live in a polarizing state of emotion, happiness, sadness, love, hate. Everything has rhythm. The cycles, the sun cycle, the days, menstrual cycle, everything is cyclical. 6, cause and effect. Everything has a cause and an effect. So your beliefs, if you believe in something, that has an effect in your behavior, in your thoughts. If there is a trigger, there is a reaction. If there is a trauma or a difficult experience in your life, it has an effect in your life. Everything has a gender. There is a giving and a receiving energy or position in existence. Even from the atoms, even the table, you know, it's the masculine on top of the carpet, that's the feminine. Is this relationship? And in this dance between the feminine and the masculine, between the giving and receiving, the tree is balanced. And the way this is understood in the Kabbalah is not as we understand it as the archetype of the feminine and the masculine. In the Kabbalah, the feminine and the masculine are not represented as the archetypical way that culturally we see it. Like the woman is the all-loving and compassionate, and the man is the authority, the control. No, in Kabbalah it's actually the opposite. And it makes sense, and you will find out why it makes sense. Now we'll go to the number 1, which is the one that comprises all of them, and it's mentalism. Everything is mental. The universe is a mind. The universe is a mind. So everything we perceived and existence is possible, or at least we can experience this because there's a mind. And this mind, in the law of correspondence, if I am a mind here seeing this, there's probably a corresponding mind above me that has created all this. Mentalism is talking really that everything is consciousness. But if there is no consciousness, that it doesn't make any sense, like there is nothing. And that's probably what was before consciousness arrived, because the moment the nothingness become aware of itself, consciousness. So these are the 7 laws that makes me understand that what I am really getting into is understanding the mind of God, but God not in a religious sense. God in the sense that there is a something or someone or whatever that is responsible for this, right? So basically, the Kabbalah it's a tool that helps me understand in its biggest, in the greater scale, the mind of God, but this one in particular to understand my mind. Just to make you understand a little bit about this, because this kind of sounds like it makes sense, but okay, how can you prove that? You know, like, where do you come up with all this stuff? Okay, so there is something that's called numerology, you know, like numbers, which can help you more or less understand that there's an order that is corresponded in all the aspects of existence, life and everything, and that they seem like coincidence. But from the mystical mind, from the mind that is becoming aware and is trying to find meaning in things, these numbers are not coincidence. So I'm going to start with the number 10. Why number 10? Because there are 10 circles, 10 sephirot. The number 10 is a very special number. When it's fragmented, it represents other interesting numbers. But let's say they chose 10 because we have 10 fingers. And because we have 10 numbers. And because there are 10 planets. No, there are not 10 planets. There are 8 plus the moon and the sun. And then the number 7. 7 days of the week. Oh, somebody just decided to have 7 days. No. But from the Earth, in ancient times, there were only 7 visible planets. You cannot count the Earth because you're on the Earth, right? The color spectrum is 7 colors that derive from white. There are 7 musical notes. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. The number 11. The solar cycle. It's 11 years. It's like the sun does an orbit, in the axis. It's 11 years. And 11 becomes 22. Every 22 years, the sun polarity shifts. Like this. 22 pairs of the DNA. So this number 22, if these guys didn't have the instrument, the chemistry and anything to understand this, how the hell did they come up with this number? 22 paths in the tree of life. Very important. The paths are the connecting parts, the connecting paths between these circles. 22. And it goes on and on and on with the number 22. You can see it in biology, in nature, in chemistry, in astronomy. So what does this mean? Like a rational mind, it's coincidence. But a mind that is really connecting with the multiple aspects of existence is at least asking itself, something is going on here. That there is an order in all this thing. So that's why numerology is very interesting, because numerology is not something new. It's not new age crazy stuff. It's 3,000 years old. And these guys came with all these numbers that today you need sophisticated instruments to find out, and they did. And then there is pi. You remember this number? Geometry? What's the number?
3.14.
Okay. This is the decimal integer. But then what's the number behind this? Mauricio? El número de pi, ¿cuál es? 22 divided by 7. So we have the 22 and the 7 again. And this number is used for everything. It's like even in Einstein's theory of relativity, in EMC squared, this is used. Because it helps calculate the speed of light. And it helps you calculate the circumference of a circle, wave, curvature, millions of things. So, and this is Babylonian, about 2,000 years old. How did they come up with that? Who knows? So there is a way to channel knowledge, information, the order of this universe through different ways. You can go through different pathways to understand these things. either through mathematics, physics, algebra, geometry, or channeling this information mystically through your own intuition. And this is what happened with these people, because they were channeling this information from the Ein of understanding the order of the universe that corresponds to the order of reality, that corresponds to the order of your mind, of your own state, and of your own well-being, your health, everything. So we're getting here in murky waters, because so far we have been exploring in different aspects of integration and entheogens and all these things. But in this school, bringing this is really understanding what mysticism is about. So the mysticism is that connection with that order that's divine, is understanding the mind of God, which is a mystery. And it can be channeled in many different ways. I am sure that more than one here have channeled in an ayahuasca session something related to reality, stars, planets, future, understanding the laws of physics, just by having this experience. Because you know what? The guy that discovered this, the PCR, the PCR test, the PCR test is a very complex procedure, because it's called the chain reaction, it's a chain reaction, genetic chain reaction test that was used for the COVID thing. This is a rapid test for genetics, right? This thing, before, it had to do into a lab like for a week, right? But the PCR allowed you to know if you had COVID or if you have an STD or whatever in minutes. To get to the procedure or the technique to do the PCR is very complicated. But this guy visualized this in an LSD trip.
Disculpa, ¿estás hablando del PCR para medir inflamación o de un...
Del COVID, el PCR del COVID. Sí.
Para medir inflamación.
Sí, el que lo describió en un viaje de LSD. So imagine this guy, he gets this comprehension from an LSD trip. Right? He changed history, because the PCR is not something that they invented in COVID. The PCR is the original, this DNA test that they use in criminology is the same. So it's like 40, 50 years old. So the mystics basically, they access to different levels of mind, because what we're talking here is about the mind. The tree of life is a tree that's a map of the mind, but the mind, we're not talking about the brain. The brain, I perceive the brain as a computer, an organic computer. Yeah? And and humanity, I think, it's identified with this organic computer. Like, we think we're that brain, right? But from the mystical perspective, that's not the only thing. There is something that's a mind above that, and we call it consciousness, the soul. I mean, they call it the soul, the neshama. Sería la neshama, ¿no?
¿Cómo?
Sería la neshama, como...
Es que el alma es todos los niveles.
Yes.
Neshama, Neshama, Nefeshua.
Okay, pero la que está por encima de la biológica...
Neshama.
Okay, so for us, like in our limited language, we just have one word, mind. But then we use soul, we use heart, we use consciousness. But the Hindus have it very clear, you know, the Chinese and the Hebrews with the word neshama. So the neshama is like an upper level mind that is not a byproduct of your brain. Many of us here believe that what we're experiencing here is a byproduct of our brain. And it's very easy to believe that. Because if we have a brain strike, a brain stroke, if we have an accident, or we become brain dead, well, we're not going to remember everything. Our ability to speak will definitely be affected. It's easy to believe that, and I understand. I studied psychology, so I was a strong believer of that. But there is proof that there is something beyond the cerebral activity of your brain. And there is scientific evidence for this. You know, this is for the scientists. You know, some people don't need that scientific evidence, but some people need it. So what's the evidence about? The evidence about this is the near-death experiences. How and why is because in near-death experiences, they have measured the electrocerebral activity, zero, flat line. But when the person comes back, the person has had an experience of everything that happened to the person, connecting to other realms, having very similar to the experiences we have in entheogenic experiences, right? So, why are these experiences so special? Because imagine someone that is clinically dead. He's being collected maybe from an accident or from whatever and taken in an ambulance, and the person is observing everything that has been done to her on the way to the hospital until the moment he's revived. How can this happen? So this is what's gotten, and actually many of the mystics had been doctors, are doctors. And Mauricio had 2 near-death experiences. Yeah.
It's very interesting. I wrote an article on Facebook about cases about brain dead people who get an organ transplantation that should be cut out and the organs should be put out. And in the cases where they don't get an narcotic, because the doctor said they don't need narcotic because they're brain dead. And there are many cases where these brain dead people, directly before they should cut out, the body go like this, and like the body was moving and wanted to attack the doctor. And that's why there was a discussion that every person who should get an organ, put out the organs, should be get the narcosis. And
wow.
They talked about the consciousness, because when the brain dead and the body can react like this, there must be
yes,
this form of consciousness.
there must be. That's the phrase. There must be something. Yeah, and yes, and that's basically, you know, a dead person, you know, having this reaction that is probably not from the organ, right? So there must be something. And Mauricio is a witness of that. ¿Sí o no? Experiencia cercana a la muerte. Yes.
Ich habe auch darüber gelesen, dass es Menschen gibt, die haben so gut wie gar kein Gehirn. Die haben nur Millimeter an Gehirnmasse. Trotzdem haben sie unglaubliche Fähigkeiten.
I also read that there are people who basically have just a very small part of the brain And it's still functioning very, very good. Even it's like just 10%.
Yes. So the thing is that in this world, and imagine like modern science, neurology, neuropsychology, and all these things are very recent. Very recent. If we see the whole spectrum of human civilization, neurology is like here or here, and it has sold us this idea that everything is cerebral, and that's why psychiatry and psychology has been very organical. So the tree of life, what it allowed me to understand from the psychological perspective was to see that there's something above this emotional, organic mind that's conditioned, okay? And to be able to connect with, upper levels of consciousness. Because in the end, what we're doing here is this, the elevation of consciousness. I mean, otherwise, why are we here? Why are you here listening to me? Don't you want to improve your lives, be happier, be more successful? That's part of the whole game of elevation of consciousness. And for me, doing this without thinking that I'm elevating my consciousness into improving my life, well, it wouldn't make any sense what I'm doing. So I'm always thinking that everything that I am teaching, that I am bringing here, is related to this. To be able, okay, how can I use this? Okay, all this stuff that you have shared, how can I use that in my life? How can that be useful in my life? It's in this too. Correspondence. Your physical well-being consciousness here is corresponding to a soul that is in another dimension. That's more or less what it means. It's like, this is a fractal. This is a fractal because there are many tree of lives. They repeat themselves, right? They repeat. But we're now focusing on the one that's in our body right now, that has to do with our emotion and our mind, right? Above this one is the spiritual one, right? Which starts here, actually. So we are connected with the spiritual. We're connected with the spiritual. But when we die, we disconnect from the physical. And then we move into the next one. But how can I prove that to you? Because that would be that then reincarnation is real, right? You say yes, but I don't have proof of that.
No, you're unsure.
I suspect that Amar is the reincarnation of Chopin. But
He's saying this because probably I'm one of the people that is not sure about anything and really does not support being sure about things that we do not contact.
yeah.
He's saying this because he knows that I'm like incarnated.
Yeah, so it's like,
Because of your love of the sun.
yeah, it's something that I cannot prove this to you, but okay, I don't close myself to that possibility. But then there's a lot of phenomena, there's a lot of things, that kind of prove this, and there are probably moments in your daily life where you're experiencing this mystical aspect of your soul, connection with your soul, that you are unaware of because you're not really focusing on it, right? So for me, this has raised my awareness of this, and I have been getting hints about it, right? This is the mystical aspect, because otherwise we stay trapped in the scientific, material world. Doing the leap is in this abyss here, which the Kabbalists call it the abyss, is peeking into that. And we're doing it with medicines. If we're going to interpret that from the material mind, you're going to stay trapped in that mind. But from the Kabbalah and from the Tree of Life, it's like, okay, we're going to take a peek of that, but we're going to try to understand it from the language, the symbols of the spiritual neshama mind, right? But this is a murky water, like I said, because it's not very clear. But it offers a possibility of consciousness elevation, and it also poses a question, okay, why have civilization, in its probably 99% of its existence, have been talking about this, and now we're ignoring it? Because we have neurology. Because we have science that is actually destroying nature, right? And it has developed like nuclear weapons that can destroy everything, right? So what I'm doing here is creating a bridge to connect with these ancient wisdoms to see, okay, what can I bring into my life? Through the Tree of Life. But the Tree of Life, is very psychological. It's very mystical, spiritual in the upper levels. But in the following days, we will be exploring it more from the psychological level. So you can understand, this material dimension that you're living in. Because in the Law of Correspondence, it's dimensional. Correspondence is like dimensional. So this is just one dimension. But if we believe this is the only thing, that's what keeps us trapped in a jail of materialism. So, this is what I say more the alchemy of the soul. Transcendent Psychology is the name that I gave it to it. But it's basically, the Transcendent Psychology, psychological part would be in this lower Sephira, and the mystical ones in this one. But we will be focusing on these ones, because they're very important for us, and they're very useful. I will share with you a link with a test that can show you more or less how is your tree of life. Okay, so it's a test that will take 5 to 10 minutes. You can do it on your phone. Then you get the results, you save them, and then we can share them. Okay? And from this, when you see this reflected in yourself, you will understand what I'm talking about. And I don't know personally some people here, just by seeing the tree of life from your test, I can more or less see things that probably you're not able to see for yourself. And this is the interesting part, but it's just a tool, okay? The Tree of Life is not about doing tests. Tree of Life is really about understanding the different dimensions, right? If you want to learn more about this, in the Kybalion book. Okay, guys, yeah. Okay, so just to see. This is just an angle, okay? An angle. But it's a very wide angle. This is a wide angle. The Kabbalah is a wide angle, like in photography, wide angle. And then you have like the zoom. This is a wide angle of reality, but it's not everything. So it's very important that whatever I say here and share, for you to use it to complement your understanding, because your understanding of this is yours. It's not that you're going to introject this and take it as a fact. No. It's just my way that I'm sharing from a wide angle perspective that then I can zoom in, in different aspects that can be very useful. For me, is the widest and most useful angle in the work I do here. The work I do here. You can connect through more or less these principles that are similar in like in Buddhism, and all these are very similar, because we have the Tree of Life in Kabbalah, but there is the chakras, very similar. It's similar. Actually, it's the same. The thing is that the geometry is a little bit different. But all these things correspond to a reality that in the end, when you nurture yourself with different perspectives, you start understanding things. So what you're saying I'm not familiar with, but probably is something that complements this. Because it's not that this is right or wrong, or this is the right way, no. It's that it's a complementary way, and it's a wide angle. This is a very wide angle. And I make it wider even, because I bring in a lot of things, modern psychology especially, the science, that usually the Kabbalists don't use. They are more mystical and this thing, right? Philosophical. This is in quantum physics, now that they are speaking about consciousness, because in quantum physics, the observer effect, consciousness affects the matter, and they say that atoms have consciousness. This is in quantum physics. Yes, Buddhism, yes. Vibration is also in physics. Oscillations, waves, polarity is also in physics. Rhythm is in physics. Cause and effect is in physics. And gender is in biology, but also in physics. So everything are like the laws of physics are laws of reality that material, but now I'm extrapolating these laws, not to the material, but to everything. Entonces yo veo el mundo afuera como lo tengo adentro. Ahí está la ley de la correspondencia desde la conciencia. Yeah, I see the world the way it is inside me. So there is a correspondence, but from the consciousness. Okay? So everything is pointing out to one. One is Keter, which is the circle above, that's the number 1. So look how we're connecting the dots between Kabbalah, numerology, spirituality, psychology, the work we do.